Whether you're 15 years old or 50 years old, you likely knew John Saunders. If you loved college football, he was there for you every Saturday night. If you loved the NHL, he was there when ABC and ESPN were broadcasting the Stanley Cup playoffs. He was a proud Canadian. If you loved college basketball, John was with you during Champ Week. If you love sports, there was a good chance John Saunders spent a lot of time in your living room. John Saunders died 1 year ago today, but the struggle he lived with was something not even his closest colleagues really knew. Here's our Bob Lee on John Saunders and that part of the story.
A year can be a flash, and beyond the calendar, our hearts call us to reflect that our newsroom, our studios, our lives are all a little quieter, missing the joyous sound of John Saunders' hearty laugh and his powerful presence. John left us suddenly, and as the shock and grief have subsided, they're replaced by a new emotion, gratitude. Just before John passed away, he'd finished writing a book, Playing Hurt. This describes his life story with searing, painful honesty. Few of us knew the full dimension of John's challenges, his lifelong battle with depression, numerous concussions, flirting more than once with suicide, an abusive childhood, a distant family life. I use the word gratitude for John offers a cautionary tale to those suffering from depression. Talk to those close to you, seek help, know that there is a way this disease can be treated. This is an important book, the final grace note of John's remarkable life. So as we remember our friend, we also thank him for bravely telling his story and showing again the strength of this man and the depth of his character. Miss you, buddy.
And the author of the book on your screen that Bob just mentioned in that eloquent piece is John U. Bacon, who might be a familiar name to college sports fans, just like John was a familiar name to college sports fans. He joins us this evening on SportsCenter to talk about it. The first thing I think is this. Very few people knew about the personal turmoil in his life starting as a child. What did he tell you about why he would keep something like that so closely guarded?
For a few reasons. One, as Joe Biden told him, the old vice president, on a train coming back from the White House, in the last 5 years, you can come out as a gay NFL player, come out as a gay NBA player. No athlete has ever come out as being clinically depressed, child molestation, child abuse, etc. John suffered all these things and a few others. And so there's clearly a stigma, and even John felt that. Pretty courageous guy in a lot of ways, but he felt that. He's also, despite being such a public figure, a very private guy, and furthermore, it involves his family. So there are three reasons right there that he probably kept it to himself. But after he heard all these stories in D.C. from Glenn Close and others who were at this conference, he realized everyone told their stories, but I've not told mine. And this is 5 years ago. And he said, you know what? It's time I told my story. And that's when he called me about this.
And John put it from pen to paper and told that story. Here's one quote I want to ask you about from him. Quote, I personally fantasized about dying in spectacular fashion rather than planning how I actually might do it. What is he saying there?
He is wanting to commit suicide without committing suicide. Basically, a car accident, going off a cliff, wrong lane, this kind of stuff. Which is why in 2012, after he goes through this horrific year where he's had this very bad concussion on the set of ABC College Football, got up too soon, blacked out, fell backwards. He's a big guy, as you know, 6'2" or 3", 235. Hit his head so hard that he was in Mount Sinai for 6 weeks. Had to relearn how to walk and talk and read and write, and all of a sudden, 10 pegs and 10 holes, it takes him 6 minutes. So during that stretch, he finally got through most of it. And then, incredibly, he suffers a heart attack at the house of Dick Vitale, well known here, of course.
Yes.
And at that point, when he came back to see a psychiatrist, Carolyn Douglas, she said, I was worried you're going to say that you wish you'd died in the heart attack. And John said 6 months ago, I might have. And this is what we're back to with the not wanting to commit suicide, but, you know, early exit. He said, but now I've got too much to live for. So in the course of this book, we see that his will to live comes back. And he very much wants to enjoy his remaining years, and he did, but they're too short.
No question, too short indeed. 61 years on this earth. Tell me about the Tappan Zee Bridge incident.
We opened the book with that, with John's blessings, in March of 2012. He drives to the Tappan Zee Bridge, which is a well-known suicide bridge. They've got signs up saying life is worth living. Here is the panic phone. These things. It's the Golden Gate Bridge of the East, basically.
Yes.
His promise to himself was that I can only let myself go there if I promise not to jump. I just want to case the joint, basically.
Really?
Yeah, and yet,
Case the joint.
once he gets out of his SUV to look over the side, anything can happen. And he said he felt a hand at his back pushing him. And he had to fight that to realize, I do not want to do this.
Wow.
Gets back in his, I know, you and me both, gets back in his SUV and says, I don't know what I'm going to do, but it's not that. So what next? And that's when he got more help.
What was the reaction when people that knew him, whether it was Vital, whether it was his college football partners, whether it was just fans? Because, right, when you watch somebody on TV, they're in your living room every week, you think you know them.
Right.
You think you know them, but you really don't really know them. When it kind of came out, what was the reaction from people that were saying, you lived through all of this?
Most sadly, because John passed away a year ago today, most of the guys like Dick Vitale I've talked to.
A small group knew?
No.
Nobody
not even those guys. I mean, he's very close to Bob Lee, very close to Chris Berman, other folks here. Maybe 3 or 4 guys knew a third of it. Wow. So I'm getting reactions now from them saying, I had no idea John went through all this. And everybody who knows this now wanted to help. And John couldn't ask him. Now, he did get professional help, so he did get better. And God bless him for that. But even Wanda, his wife, said, 10, 20% of this, she did not know.
Wow.
So it's been a big shocker for almost everybody.
I would just assume he would have shared it with somebody, but really he was battling it all by himself. That's unbelievable. Last thing,
I stress that with professional help.
With professional help.
By himself, he would not have survived.
Right. But those, the friends, the family, the people he would confide in the most, he was not confiding in. It's
not completely.
Not completely. Even his wife. Amazing. As I mentioned, John Saunders spent 61 years on this earth, but at ESPN, he'll live forever. The book is out today. John, thank you.
Thank you.